But what makes a good king? Hmm? What is a good king's single most important quality?
This is hardly the place or the time.
His grandson just died. The body is still warm on that altar behind them, and that's the first thing Tywin Lannister says. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not a single word to Cersei, who is standing right there on the other side of her dead son. What makes a good king? I want you to hold that image for a second, because what you just watched isn't grief. It isn't even indifference. It's something much more calculated than either of those things. That question, asked in that room at that moment over that body, is the opening move in one of the most precise transfers of power in the entire show. And by the time this scene ends, Tywin will have done something no sword or army could do for him. He'll have made himself the most important person in the next king's life, without anyone in that room realizing it happened. Here's something worth understanding before we go further. For Tywin Lannister, Joffrey was never really a king. He was a liability, cruel in ways that made enemies, unpredictable in ways that made alliances impossible. The kind of ruler who forces the people around him to spend all their energy managing the chaos he creates instead of building anything real. Tywin had spent 3 years doing exactly that, cleaning up, steering from behind, absorbing the damage, and somewhere in all of that, I think he knew, without ever saying it out loud, that Joffrey was a problem he couldn't solve, only survive. And then Joffrey dies, and there's Tommen. Tommen is 12 years old, gentle, curious, desperate to be liked. He has none of his brother's cruelty and none of his brother's confidence. He is, in every way that matters to Tywin, the opposite of what came before. Joffrey was stone. You couldn't shape stone. You worked around it. Tommen is clay, and Tywin has been waiting for this moment, maybe without even admitting it to himself, for years.
Baelor the Blessed was holy and pious. He built this sept. He also named a 6-year-old boy High Septon because he thought the boy could work miracles.
Okay, I need you to notice something here, because it's easy to miss. Tommen isn't giving bad answers. Holiness, a king guided by faith, trusted by the people. Justice, a king who's fair, who upholds the law. These are real answers, good answers, the kind of answers that would get full marks in any history lesson, and Tywin says no to both of them, gently, patiently, almost warmly. Watch his face when he does it. There's no contempt there. Not the way there is when he talks to Joffrey or Cersei or even Tyrion. He's genuinely engaged, and that's the most unsettling part, because this isn't a man trying to crush a child. He's trying to reshape one. Every gentle no is doing something very specific. It's teaching Tommen that his own instincts can't be trusted, that the right answer exists somewhere outside himself, and that the person standing next to him, calm, certain, unhurried, is the one who has it. Psychologists call this framing control. You don't tell someone what to think. You define what counts as correct before the conversation starts, and every wrong answer tightens the frame until the only way out is through you. Tywin has been doing this his entire life. He just never had a subject this easy to work with.
So, we have a man who starves himself to death, a man who lets his own brother murder him, and a man who thinks that winning and ruling are the same thing.
I mean, just look at what Tywin is doing here. He doesn't just give Tommen the answer, he builds a case for it. 3 kings, strong kings, holy kings, just kings, and in every single example, the point isn't the king's greatness. The point is who was standing behind the king, the advisor, the counselor, the man who actually knew what to do. The king was the symbol, the man beside him was the power. And here's the layer that most breakdowns of this scene completely miss. In the books, we learn that Tywin's own father, Lord Titus Lannister, was a weak man. Kind, generous, completely unable to command respect. The other lords didn't just ignore him, they laughed at him openly. They called him the Toothless Lion, and young Tywin watched all of it and made a decision. He would never be his father. But here's the irony I don't think Tywin himself fully sees. What destroyed Tytos wasn't weakness, it was isolation. He had no one beside him who could tell him when he was wrong, no one he trusted enough to listen to. He faced everything alone and collapsed under the weight of it. Tywin solved that problem by becoming so formidable that he never needed anyone. He carried it all himself, the strategy, the fear, the decisions, for decades, alone. And now, in this September, he's giving Tommen something he never allowed himself to have: a framework, a reason to lean on the person beside him. He's parenting in the only language he knows.
Wisdom.
Yes.
Wisdom is what makes a good king.
Yes. But what is wisdom? A house with great wealth and fertile lands asks you for your protection against another house with a strong navy that could one day oppose you.
Wisdom, that's the answer. But listen to how he defines it. Not intelligence, not experience, not moral clarity. Wisdom, according to Tywin Lannister, is knowing what you don't know, and knowing who to ask. That's a very specific definition, and it is not accidental, because what Tywin has just told this boy, gently, patiently over the course of 3 minutes, is that the greatest kings in history were the ones humble enough to rely on someone wiser than themselves. The ones who understood that real power comes from knowing when to defer. And he's told him this while being, in this moment, the only adult in Tommen's life who is calm, present, certain, the only one who didn't collapse, the only one who walked in and started building instead of grieving. Of course Tommen believes him. Why wouldn't he? Look at the evidence in that room. Cersei is broken. Joffrey, who had none of this wisdom, is dead. And Tywin is standing there, composed and unhurried, offering a 12-year-old boy a way through the most terrifying moment of his life. The lesson landed. You can see it on Tommen's face. And the terrifying part, the part that gets me every time, is that it's not manipulation in the way we usually think about it. Tywin isn't lying. The lesson is real. Wisdom matters. Advisors matter. Knowing your limits matters. He just also happens to be the advisor he's describing.
Perhaps he'd still be alive. Now, as the king, you will have to marry. Do you understand why?
King.
Okay, this is the moment that gets me. Not because of what Tywin does, because of what he doesn't do. He doesn't say goodbye to Cersei, doesn't acknowledge her grief, doesn't look at Joffrey one last time. He puts his hand on Tommen's shoulder and walks. And Tommen follows, without hesitation, without looking back at his mother. That hand on the shoulder. I want to stop there, because it looks like comfort. It looks like a grandfather steadying a grieving child. And maybe, somewhere underneath everything, it is. But it's also a claim. It's the gesture of a man who has already decided, in the time it took to ask 3 questions, that this child belongs to him now. His project, his legacy, his king. And then there's Cersei. She's the queen. She's the mother. She lost her son today. By every measure of this world, she should be the one walking out with Tommen. She should be the one shaping the next king. Instead, she's standing alone next to a corpse. Tywin didn't push her aside. He never raised his voice, never made a move against her. He simply moved faster. Started the lesson before she finished grieving. And by the time she looked up, the door was already closing. Here's what I keep coming back to with this scene. Tywin Lannister is terrifying, not because of the Red Wedding, not because of the armies or the gold, but because he is never not thinking. There is no moment in his life where the strategic part of his brain turns off. Not even this one, especially not this one. And what makes it so hard to look away is that it isn't monstrous. It would almost be easier if it were. But Tywin isn't cruel to Tommen in this scene. He's patient, present. He gives the boy something real, structure, attention, the feeling that someone powerful believes he can do this. In another context, in another family, on another day, you'd call that good parenting. In this room, on this day, with Cersei alone in the corner, it's the most efficient takeover we've seen on this show. No swords, no threats, just a question, an answer, and a hand on a child's shoulder. Joffrey was a king. Tywin had to survive. Tommen would be a King Tywin built from the ground up. And somewhere in all of that, in the patience, in the clarity, in the certainty of the man, there's something genuinely sad. Because Tywin will never know if Tommen actually needed him. He never gives the boy the chance to find out. He just assumes the answer is yes, and starts building. Which is, when you think about it, exactly what his own father never did for him.